Hey everybody, what is up? Toby Salgado here. I hope you guys had a great holiday break. Now, listen, thanks for tuning in, and if you've just found this show, welcome. And if you don't know, this is the number 3 podcast in the world for real estate agents. Now, if you're not an agent, that's okay. This show is about entrepreneurship through the lens of a real estate agent, and for the most part, it doesn't matter if you're a painter, plumber, pie maker, whatever it is. Building a business is the same, really, really is. It's about, going out, making contacts, building your list and showing people your offer. Now, I do this show so that you can crush your 2015 goals. And hopefully you guys have written out your goals and you've challenged yourself to think bigger than you did in 2014. Now, for 2015, for us, we were all about audience building in 2014. 2015 for this show is about monetization. I've never asked you guys to donate to the show, to buy anything. You can go to our website. There's nothing for sale there today. But we are doing radio. So the secret weapon for real estate agents is getting on radio and casting a larger net. So if you're out there and if you're top 10 in your market, we would love to chat with you. Radio it really works. It's crazy. So today's content, what we talk about, I bring a guy named Brian Moses on. Now, Brian is a trainer for NAEA. And if you're not familiar with those guys, that's Jay Kinders and Mike Reese. And Jay's been on the show here. But here's what we talk about today. We talk about how he went from working 100 hours a week and being all stressed out to going to 20 hours a week. He was doing about 42 deals a year, didn't think he could break through that. And within 1 year, he went from 42 to 142. He was top 10 in the world for Cold World Banker for 2 years in a row. Truly sort of this zero to hero kind of story. And we spent some time talking about mindset, how people with a scarcity mindset believe that they can't do it. And we talk about how to change from a scarcity mindset to a mindset of abundance and how to change your belief systems. Because, really your belief is maybe the only thing's holding you back. Maybe you do have those skills, but there's something that happened to you in college or in high school that you don't think you deserve to win. You don't think you can be number one. So hopefully you get something out of this show. Let's get to it. Welcome to Super Agents Live. This is the one place where you can come and hear the most successful people in real estate. You'll hear how these super agents built their businesses, how they stay productive, and how they stay motivated. Who am I? My name's Toby Salgado, and I made my first $1 million in real estate. Yeah. And I'm your host for the next 30 minutes while we talk to yet another amazing real estate entrepreneur. Stay tuned.
Let's go! Yeah.
Thanks for coming on the show today.
How you doing, Toby?
I'm doing great. Listen, sorry, I've given the audience a brief overview of your background, but maybe take a minute, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're doing today.
Well, thanks for having me, Toby. It's really great to be with you. And hello to all the listeners. I'm presently the Vice President of Membership Services with the National Association of Realtors with Mike Reese and Jay Kinder. I've been in the real estate business for about 25 years. I started like most agents, trying to figure it out, worked really hard. I was working 100-plus hours a week, nights, weekends, and holidays. Lost hundreds of thousands of dollars investing in things, trial and error, trying to figure out what worked and what didn't. And after 5 arduous, difficult years, I was able to implement some common sense, I guess, Toby. And my father had a conversation with me. He said, success leaves clues. Why don't you find out, you're trying all these different things and you're experimenting, and some things work good, some things aren't working at all. You're losing a lot of money. You're working really hard. I hate to see you struggle. He said, why don't you find somebody who's getting the results you want and model their behavior? So I did that, and I went from 42 transactions making $250,000 in GCI and losing about $100,000 to 142 transactions the very next year. So in a very short amount of time, I was able to model successful behavior, build a very, very profitable real estate practice. I became the number one agent in New Hampshire, and then the number one agent in the Northeast United States for Coldwell Banker, and eventually made the top 10 in the world for Coldwell Banker in sales, and stayed there for 7 consecutive years, and twice was the number 2 agent. So very, very proud of my real estate career. And today, like you, I share the knowledge and experience with people to try to make their lives better and fast track their path to success.
Interesting, man. That is interesting. So, look, both of us are in this world. We see this all the time. And here's something I see. You can go to any brokerage you want, and there's 3 groups of people. There's the top 20% who are crushing it. There's the middle 60% who, they're holding their own. And then you have the bottom 20% who are basically just taking up space. Now, if you look at those 3 groups and you go, just like you did, right? What's the theme, right? Thematically, what's similar, what's different about these 3 groups? Number one, the top 20%, 80%, 90% of those people will have a coach. The bottom 20% will, like 100% of them will not have a coach. Earlier you said success leaves clues. You found somebody. Why is it, man? Why is it that people know they need to get help, but they just don't bet on themselves? They don't go out and find somebody and say, look, I need help. Bring me along.
Yeah, I think probably, if I were to pick one answer, and it might vary amongst people, but the one common thing is their belief systems. And so many people today, Toby, operate with a scarcity mentality and don't believe that they can do it. Maybe their circumstances, their challenges, their present situations are getting in the way of those beliefs. But, I stepped back and I've had some great influences in my life, from my high school football coach to Anthony Robbins to all kinds of people that I look up to and give a lot of credit to my success, who believed in me sometimes when I didn't even believe in myself. And it comes down to belief systems. If your beliefs determine your potential, and your potential determines the actions that you're going to take, and the actions that you take will determine the results. And there's an old saying that if you believe you can or you can't, you're absolutely right. Yeah. So I just believe that we live in one of the richest lands in the world, where opportunity is abundant. Immigrants who migrate to this country are 4 times more likely to become millionaires than our own citizens. Mm-hmm. Why is that possible? Because they believe that they can, and they set on a path to do it. And they're not afraid of rolling up their sleeves and failing and making mistakes. They go after it. And I think that's the key to success.
Yeah, well, I think you're right. Right. High level, I would agree with you, right? Those 2 things, right? Believing you can do it, and then rolling up your sleeves and doing the hard work. When somebody, that one person who, let's say they do have that belief system of I can't do it, or I'm not worth it, or whatever it is, those beliefs are rooted in something, right? When you were a kid, like maybe you couldn't do algebra, and so then all of a sudden it turned into I can't do math, or you know what I mean? Like, how do you think? Look, we're very early into this, and we're getting into some heavy stuff, and we can make it light in a second. But how does somebody, if they have beliefs like that are rooted, they're anchored somewhere in their past, how do they break those off? How do you shake those off?
Well, I think the fastest way to do it is to look around at other people who have done it. Oprah Winfrey's a great example. She grew up in the South. She was predominantly discriminated against growing up. She had no mom, no dad. She was in and out of foster homes. By the age of 13, I think, she was pregnant. She was raped by somebody in her family, and she decided to have the baby anyway. And at 9 months, she lost the baby, and she didn't let her circumstances or her situations dictate her future. And I think when you look at people like that, and now she's one of the richest people and most successful people on the planet. Michael Jordan's another great example. He didn't make his high school basketball team, and he's arguably one of the best athletes in the NBA of all time. So there's just countless examples of people who have overcome far greater adversity and odds than I've ever been faced with. So my belief is, if they can do it, why can't I?
Yeah, you know what's funny? You know what's funny is, first of all, I didn't know all that stuff about Oprah at all, so it's interesting to hear that. But when you talk about Oprah, it reminded me of something I heard her say, and it was this. It was, she was into broadcast journalism. And this is, I don't know what year it was, maybe in the 70s or something. Mm-hmm. She had a job, and she was making decent money at the time, and I think it was like 30 grand. She was making 30 grand a year, and she was going to quit it for a bigger opportunity. And she went and told her dad, right, whoever raised her, hey, Dad, I'm going to quit my job at 30 grand. And her dad's like, why in the world are you going to quit? That's a great job. Why are you going to quit? And, right. Again, this is a mindset thing, right? There was a path of risk and then a path of least resistance. She said, I'm going to throw off this good job and go out and forge my own path. And then, obviously she's like, a billionaire now. So,
I think she recognized what it was she wanted to achieve in life, and she recognized that the path she was on wasn't in alignment with her goals. So the first thing that people listening to us talking about, they need to understand, what is it that they want? What type of life, what type of legacy do they want to leave? How do they want to be remembered? And then evaluate those actionable steps that are going to bring you closer to that destination, to that journey, to that process. And I think in Oprah's case, it was very clear to her that she wanted more, and the path that she was on wasn't bringing her closer to it, so she was able to quit.
So, yeah, look, I think we could talk about this a whole bunch because
there's no question. But, yeah.
So let's move on. I'm sure we're going to wrap back around this. So for you, if I go back into your history, Brian, right? So you were doing okay, man. You're doing 42 transactions a year. I mean, that's decent. But it was.
But I was losing I want to be clear. I was losing $100,000. I was selling things. I had the collectibles and. I was borrowing money and going into debt to invest in things that I thought would produce great returns for my business. So although I was selling more transactions than most people in my marketplace, I wasn't making any money. And I was viewed as a success. People thought I was successful. 42 deals, man, the guy's doing great. But inside I was dying. I was depressed. I was discouraged. I was disappointed. I was frustrated. So, it's just for everybody listening, it's not what you make in real estate, it's what you keep.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important.
So that I understand and everybody understands. So you're doing 42 deals, GCI of 200 and something. I heard you say, I didn't write it down, but GCI, let's call it 200 grand. You were making on the top line 200 grand, but you were spending more than 200 grand?
Yes. To make the 200. So I was minus $100,000.
Help us. Look, first of all, how often do you see this out in the world, right? Because you deal with a lot of new agents in AEA, but how often do you see this? And like, if somebody's in that trap right now, what can they do to break out of that?
Well, the first thing is to recognize that there are things that produce results. Some things work better than others. Some things don't work at all. And some things work exceptionally better than the things that work mediocre. And knowing what they are allows you to put a plan together of what to do first, second, third, and fourth. Now, I did television advertising. I did radio advertising in those early years. And it's very, very expensive. And I was promoting and branding myself because everybody said, hey, you got to do that. So I did it. And I spent tens of thousands of dollars on personal promotion, standing out in a field, outstanding in your field. Call Brian for all your real estate questions. And nobody called. So, money flushed down the toilet. And, there are impact areas that make a difference. I had an opportunity for a few years to work with Chet Holmes at Business Breakthroughs International with Tony Robbins. And I learned more in those 2 years. He's the author of The Ultimate Sales Machine, phenomenal book, one of the best business books I've ever read. But the guy was just so smart, and he taught me that it's not about doing 4,000 things. It's about doing a few things 4,000 times.
Yeah.
So what are the impact areas of your business? Quality lead generation. If you don't have the ability to consistently attract buyers and sellers, you're out of business. But people, and you hear this all the time, Toby, too, and, let me know if you agree or disagree with it. This is, I think, a healthy conversation. Most real estate agents today, the masses, they play the numbers game. The more people you talk to, the more leads they think they're going to get. Well, we don't want to talk to people. We want to talk to home buyers and home sellers. There's a difference between a property owner and a home seller. I don't want to talk to home owners. I want to talk to people that are motivated, that need to sell their home. And one of the first things that turned my business around was the ability to consistently attract those types of prospects each and every month. So quality lead generation is something that we should master. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it 100% makes sense, and I think I'll expand on that idea, and you can tell me whether you agree or disagree. But so first of all, if you can identify, right? So in a lot of ways, you're talking about a funnel, right? So at the top of the funnel, most people say, "Hey, listen, I just want to talk with people, and if I can put 25 cards in my pocket and have none when I get home every day." I'm gonna, something's gonna kick out of the funnel, and then there's getting a little bit more focused and say, listen, I want to talk with just people who own homes, right? So your target market that you're tuning your radar to is a little bit further down the funnel, and then for you, right, your next step was to again tune your radar to this thing of, hey, I want to talk and find people who want to sell their home. Now, and if you think about this is, I'm sure this came out of Chet's book, or it's certainly in Napoleon Hill's book, right? It is, putting that out there in the universe, right? Tuning your radar to it, and the universe will deliver to it. And I think that if you can super tune your radar to, in your case, I want to find people who want to sell their homes, that's who you're going to pick up, man. And it happens.
Agree 100%.
Awesome.
Knowing what you're going after is paramount.
Yeah, and being deliberate.
From that, yes, intentional, proactive versus reactive, right?
Yep.
So then the next step is the conversion process of that. If we were to, call real estate offices all over the country, or even if we picked a particular brand, and we said we're going to call Century 21 offices or Remax offices, and we called somebody in Dallas, and we called somebody in Boston, and we called somebody in Fort Myers, the conversation is going to be very, very different. Yet other franchises, when you go into a franchise, the process, you go to McDonald's, a Big Mac looks the same, costs the same, delivered the same, and the experience is the same. So why is it in real estate that, you've got all these different franchises, but every experience is different? And what Chet taught me is that there are best practices. There are best ways to attract leads, to attract those home buyers and home sellers. And then there are best practices to convert them. So I worked endlessly throughout my real estate career, and still do, tweaking and dialing in those best practices that are going to convert the conversion, because I don't want to spend more money today on generating more leads and more opportunities when I'm not converting 100% of the leads that I already have. I want to get better at getting more meat off the bone so that I can be more profitable and operate at a higher level.
So, okay, look, so I want you to unpack that a little bit, because I will say, I hear you on that, and I see things a little bit differently, and I'll give you a stat here. So number one, sure. NAR came out with a statistic not too long ago, and it was 87% of people will hire the first agent they meet. So in terms of conversions, like, for the most part, you should get pretty high conversions. Now, for me, right, when I talk with people, the people that I work with, if you go on a listing appointment and you're closing 80% of them, to me that says that you're simply not doing enough, right? It means you're not getting up to bat enough times, because if you are a lead generation machine, your closing rate should probably only be 30 or 35%. So if you're converting 100%, again, I'd say, man, you're not getting up to bat enough.
Yeah, I don't know about the percentages. I mean, I converted probably 75, 80% on a listing appointment, and we're doing hundreds of deals a year. So I'm getting to bat a lot, and my conversions are pretty high. And there are things that people can do to improve their conversion percentages. One of the things that you said, which I just want to add a step to it. As you said, 87 in our statistics, 87% of the public will work with the first person they meet. Well, in order to meet them, you have to be successful at converting the appointment, and most agents don't even ask for the appointment.
Yeah.
And so that might be an aha for the people listening today. Geez, I was talking to a buyer the other day, and I never even made an offer to get together. Because we have, as an industry, I think we have this false expectation that people are going to call us back. Mm-hmm. The problem is there's too many real estate agents out there for that to be a probability in a positive, favorable statistic. And most people, today will come across several real estate agents as they start thinking about buying and selling a home because their reticular activator is going crazy. Right. So they're noticing everything. So competition's, probably at the highest it's ever been, and we can't expect that people are going to call us back because we had a nice, friendly conversation with them. So there are best practices for offering something of value to the prospect so that they go, hey, you know what, there's a lot more to this that meets the eye, and I want to meet with Brian.
And you know what? Even if let's say that person out there did make that offer to set an appointment with that person, and let's say that person said no, or and really no is not right now or whatever. Here's the problem. People go, oh, dude, I tried. I offered to meet with this guy again, and he said no. You know what? Everybody's heard me say this before, right? But the fortune is in the follow-up. And when you follow up, it's not follow up once or twice. I mean, again, statistics say that it is between the 8th and 12th contact that you actually break something loose, especially if you're working like with an expires or FSBOs or something. So following up is something that people are clearly not getting right.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I agree 100%.
Thanks, man. So Brian, again, take us back. I want to get to that point where, that inflection point where, you 42 deals, but you're depressed. You're having to sell off the collectibles, the things that you love. And all of a sudden the next year you go from 42 and losing money to 142 and being profitable. What was the shift, man? What was the transformation, the metamorphosis that you went through to make that shift?
It was talking to the right people. It was defining a lead. So the difference between those 2 years, that 12-month window, was my definition of a lead. You articulated it so well earlier in our conversation. You said some people just talk to people, some people talk to people in a particular neighborhood, and then Brian, you've identified that you only want to talk to home buyers and home sellers. So I really got specific in who I was spending my time with, and I wasn't spending time with people that weren't going to buy or sell with me.
Got it. So and
it sounds so simple.
Yeah.
But defining a lead. If I can just add to one thing, I would work in the early years. If you would talk to me and you were looking for a home, I'd put you in the car and work with you.
Right. Yeah.
If you could flag a mirror. No way anymore. So you want to define the geography. What's your primary market? Do people even know what their primary market is? And how far will you deviate beyond your primary market? I'm not going to drive more than 15 minutes outside of my primary market because there's enough business right there under my nose that I don't have to drive an hour one way to an appointment.
Yeah.
I don't do commercial real estate. I don't do new construction. I don't work with people who want to be Bob the Builder, But in the early years, somebody goes, hey, I want to buy a piece of land. Well, I get a buyer,
right.
Put them in my car, and I'm out walking land. It's crazy. So being laser focused in who you're going to work with. Darren Hardy, the publisher of Success Magazine,
yep.
I recently listened to an interview that he said, and, he's interviewed like you have. You're in a privileged position. You get to talk to so many successful people.
Oh, man. It's
success does.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what he said was, he's interviewed Richard Branson, Donald Trump, and presidents and dignitaries, and he says, everybody asks me, what is it that they do to make themselves so successful? And he says, it's not what they do, it's what they don't do.
Yes.
And there's such an epiphany in that. And I probably say no to more things than I say yes to, and I think that's, there's some prudence in that.
There is, I 100% agree, man. I mean, there's that's a skill. Saying no learning to say no is a skill. But I agree with that, man. Being able to say no and finding your niche, right? Finding the thing that you want to be great at. Who wrote Good to Great? Jim Collins, right? Good to, there's good and there's great, and the differentiator is exactly what you're saying, Brian. Have a niche and having everything, right? Your brand ooze that niche, right? Having every action you take in line with that niche, right? And that niche could be, it could be either geography, like, beachfront homes, or it could be a group like, okay, you're going to niche down and focus on millennials, right? Or boomers or investors or whatever it might be. So in terms of, again, going back to that person where, you said it's mindset. So the mindset is, there's these people out there who want to do real estate. They want to do 180 transactions a year or whatever, but deep down inside, they don't think they could do it. You said you should find someone that has done it and then model them. And you said you did that. I mean, talk to us about your experience with that.
Yeah. I remember in those early years flying out to Agents Marketplace. He was one of the top agents in the world for RE/MAX. In 2 days, he listed 22, 23 homes in 2 days. And I went on every appointment with them. The listing presentation wasn't 2 hours. It was very laser focused, very specific. He had processes and systems like any other business person would have processes and systems. And I learned a tremendous amount from him. And then, going to seminars and networking with the people that you want to be like and being open-minded, not, my dad told me it's what you learn after you know everything that makes the difference. And sometimes in this business you experience such great success, you think you've got it all figured out. Well, being humble and being open to the fact that the world is changing and that there are better ways always being created, has served me really, really well. So finding agents that have been tremendously successful, being intentional, like you said, Toby, knowing what I'm going to say when I'm talking to a buyer, knowing what I'm going to say when I'm speaking to a seller, whether it's over the phone, whether it's face-to-face, knowing how to handle the most common objection. Let's face it, I mean, we hear them over and over and over again. Well, I'm not in any rush, or I need to find a house before I sell, or will you lower your commission, or I got to think about it, or I got to check with my spouse. There are best practices. So find out from other agents who are succeeding at a very high level how they handle those common interactions and situations, and then just duplicate it. It's not that hard. We're very fortunate to be in an industry where with very little investment, with very little schooling, we can make hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. I mean, you can make more than doctors, lawyers, CPAs, and other professionals who've gone to school for 12, 14, 16 years. So I'm very privileged and grateful for the opportunities that I've had. And I've worked really, really hard to identify those impact areas that make the greatest difference.
And on that topic, real quick, Brian, if you think about real estate, right? I mean, right. So you don't need a fancy education. You don't need a lot of money. You don't even need a certain kind of temperament, right? So if anybody's taking the disc profile, you can have a high I. The high I people are very gregarious people, right? You don't have to be super gregarious. I mean, if I listen to your personality, you're probably not a high I guy, and that's okay. You can succeed. And here's the point that I'm trying to make, Brian. Real estate throughout the history of mankind is the thing that has made people wealthy, all the way back to King Solomon, right? More people have become millionaires and multimillionaires with real estate than probably any other thing in the world.
Right.
And it's all
absolutely,
and it's all right out there for and anybody can go and do it. It's an amazing industry and that's why I'm doing this show, man. I want people to succeed, and I want to that's why I'm bringing guys like you on, man, to share your experience and help people out. So on that note, again, you work with a ton of people. You work with, you work with Jay Kinder and Michael Reese. Now, Jay Kinder's been on the show. He did a great episode. So you work with very successful people. And I think Jay is a very, very smart marketer. He's doing, and I think it's his work with Jay Abraham. As soon as he started working with Abraham, I started to see Kinder do some pretty interesting internet marketing type of moves with real estate. But but you also work with people who are not very successful, right? Because the people that come on and they ask your group for help. What is it, this is a crazy question, but is there like a common theme that you see where, it's a common mistake that you just see people make over and over again, and you just go, man, if you could fix that, like so much would fall in line?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. Well, there's a bunch of them, but the one that comes to mind as you ask the question is they think they're under the illusion that they need more leads. I talk to real estate agents all the time. If I'm talking to somebody who doesn't do a lot of production, they're many times generating 20, 30, 40 new opportunities a month. And they think they need more leads because, let's say they generate 30 leads and they sell one house a month. So they know if they generate another 30, they're going to get 2 sales a month. And that's a mathematical formula that works if you don't get any better at anything. Mm-hmm. You can work harder, but eventually you're going to run out of daylight, and there's not going to be enough hours in the day for you to double, triple, quadruple your transactions.
Right.
So I think that one of the things I see happening a lot is it's not that you need more leads. You need better quality of leads. We talked about this quite a bit on today's interview. You're talking to the wrong people. So you need better quality of leads, number one, or you need to get better at the conversion process with those leads. So I'll go a little bit deeper if I might. Somebody says, hey, I called these people and they said no. Well, when you dissect it, when you do an autopsy of the situation, which I did a lot, and I would recommend everybody do that. When they experience failure or rejection, they pause for a minute and look back on it and ask themselves, what could I have done better? They find somebody who's successful in the marketplace and say, hey, how would you have handled that situation? Mm-hmm. I guarantee you they will get some insights and epiphanies on how they can do it better the next time. Because if you don't change your strategy, you're destined for the same, more of the same. And, it's as simple as change your strategy, change your results, and implement the best practices in these processes.
You know what? As you're saying that, tell me what you think of this, right? So you go into a meeting, appointment, or whatever. You don't get the outcome you want. Now, if you think about what companies do, that kind of feedback of the experience, right? I mean, any store I go into, I can turn the receipt over, and it says, "Hey, to win $100 or whatever it is, take a 5-minute survey." Take a 5-minute survey. Tell us how we did, right? We get phone calls like that all the time. Hey, listen, you go into your AAA. Hey, how did you do? How was your experience like? I wonder if it would be worthwhile for people to create a little survey, which you can do on SurveyMonkey for free. And then, at the end of the point, send it to them and say, hey, listen, and maybe you offer the same thing. Hey, listen, if you want to get into the contest to win an iPad, take 5 minutes and tell me how I did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Go on a listing appointment with another agent. Get another person's opinion of how you're doing it. Record your presentations. Practice. I have 2 children. I have a 7-year-old and a 12-year-old, both boys. They're both good in school. They have teachers, right? They have instructors. Mm-hmm. They are both into the martial arts. My oldest, 12 years old, is a 2-time world champion in Taekwondo.
Wow.
Well, he wasn't born a world champion. In fact, when he started at 5 years old and he started swinging his little plastic rubber nunchucks, it was laughable, it was cute, it was funny. And today, if you watched him, your jaw would drop and you'd go, wow, that kid is talented. Well, he didn't learn it himself. He learned from a coach. He learned from somebody who has already mastered it. And if Bruce Lee were around, the greatest martial artist ever to live, do you think he could teach you something about self-defense?
Right.
And in the first-degree black belt form, Toby, there's 84 specific steps or moves in the first-degree black belt form. but many of them are duplicated. There's really only 7 or 8 total moves. And my son has mastered those 7 or 8 moves. And that's what we're talking about in real estate. Quality lead generation, master it. What to say over the phone, master it. What to say on a listing presentation, a buyer presentation, master it. How to handle common objections, master it. How many of those things that I don't even know how many we need, maybe 5 or 6 things that I suggest that people master.
Yeah.
When you master those areas, what do you think will happen to your income? It's going to go through the roof. It's going to skyrocket. And the best way to do that is to get a coach, find somebody who's done it. There's a lot of great coaches and instructors in the industry today. Continue to invest in yourself, listening to you do these interviews. And, you know, they're very privileged to be able to have access to this stuff, to talk.
Oh yeah,
to listen to
for free, man. For free. And you know what? Let me tell you this. So what you said, I think that was a great analogy. The whole black belt analogy, right? So 84 pieces or moves or whatever in black and martial arts.
The first to reform, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And you said, well, maybe there's 5 in real estate. Now here's the thread that I want to tie together. It's this: if you can master your scripts, if you can master your listening, if you can truly master those 5 arms, right, or spokes, or whatever way you want to look at it, what's going to happen is, as a byproduct, your confidence level is going to go through the roof. Now think about this for a second, right? So we all know this total presence thing, and so when we meet someone and talk to them, the message that we're conveying, 7% is the words we use. 28% is the tonality we use, but 55% is our body language. So man, that just makes so much sense. Master those 5 things, get that confidence, and it's just going to, again, like ooze through you out onto the person that you're talking. That's brilliant, man. So is this what you? Go ahead. Sorry, what were you saying? I
just said thank you. Thank you. It's so simple, and I wish somebody. I wish I had that advice 5 years earlier into my career, because it was 5 years of hardship and struggle. But I think it's who you become in that process too, never quitting, never giving up,
right.
On your hopes, goals, and dreams. And fortunately, I didn't. I mean, I was close a bunch of times, but thankfully, I didn't give up. And maybe there's people on today's call who are about to give up. And, I would echo your sentiments and say, don't give up on your hopes, goals, and dreams. You can do it. And here's some strategies on how you can get better.
Yeah, and look, and the people, it's so funny. I get messages all the time. People that listen to the show, and they're like, I just feel so much prepared. Especially these are the people telling me this that are just getting their license, right? I was very confused. I didn't know how to handle it, and after listening to the show, I feel a lot better. But so look, you touched on something pretty interesting. You almost quit. You didn't quit. Now the deal is, right, real estate, right, trying to sell real estate, right, it's a business of rejection, man, right? You get rejected all the time, going out and trying to find those quality leads, and so you couple rejection with your business not being very good, and you have days or weeks or months where you wake up and you're like, oh, I just can't do it again. You faced that. What was the thing that got you up, got you to roll out of bed and just go, you know what, I'm just going to push through another day until, fake it till you make it? Like how did you do that?
Yeah. Well, I really loved what the industry represented. I mean, I enjoyed the whole, seeing property, viewing property. I envisioned owning lots of real estate. And I've read a lot of inspirational books, Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill, Earl Nightingale. I've listened to all those audio tapes from back in the 60s. And so, I don't know who said it. And I wish I could give credit, but it really helped me. When you feel rejected, they're not rejecting you. They're rejecting your offer or your product or your service. So I never, ever, ever took it personally, because it wasn't me. You can't make somebody buy or sell their home. So if they say no, it's not you. They don't have the need or the motivation or the desire to do that. So don't take it personally.
Yeah. I agree with that. And I'll tell you something, man, going out and finding good guests for this show, I'll do 2 things. Sometimes I'll send an email, as I did in your case. And other times I'll pick up the phone and call. And I've had many, many times where I get on the phone with somebody, and these are all top producers. They're busy. I understand that, but I'll say, "Hey, I'm Toby Salgado. I have this radio show," and people will just literally just go click, and I go,
Wow.
I just go, number one, this could have been good for you, your business, but number two, you're a salesperson. I'm a sales guy, and when I let people, I don't do that to people because I know that it makes people feel bad. I mean, I give people the courtesy to listen to their offer and go, yeah, it's not for me at this point.
Sure.
It's just amazing to me.
I do the same.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can totally relate.
Yeah. So anyhow, okay. So let's talk about, here's you keep touching on the fact that people will say, hey man, I need more leads. And I hear that all the time too. I need more leads. And then here's this other thing I hear is once they start to get leads, what I start to hear then is I don't have the time. I can't manage my time. So in terms of productivity, well, first of all, do you hear that as well or no?
Yes, absolutely. Yep.
So for you, I know you have a ton of stuff going on. How do you stay productive and focused on a day-to-day basis?
I time block. So before, I'm not reactive. I take a blank calendar, a monthly calendar, and I time block the things that are important to me in all the 5 equities of life. So, if you want to have a great business, you have to work on your business. If you want to have great relationships, you have to work on your relationships. If you want to have great health and great physique, you have to work on your health. So I time block things monthly. For family time, it's scheduled. And flexibility is the key to success. I think half the battle is scheduling it. And, you can interchange appointments. And so I start with a monthly calendar. Then I go to a weekly calendar, and I take a weekly blank calendar, and it's got 7 days, Sunday through Saturday. And I create this concept of what I call a perfect week. So if I'm going to reach all my goals in all the areas of my life that are important to me, professionally, personally, relationship-wise, financially, what are the things I have to work on every week? And I call those the big rocks. And if you had a bucket, and you may have heard this before, if I gave you a 5-gallon bucket and a bunch of rocks, and you put the big rocks in the bucket first until it was full, and then I gave you some smaller rocks, the smaller rocks can sift through the crevices, and then I gave you some sand, and then I gave you some water. You can really get a lot of material in that bucket. But if we start with the sand and the water, you'll never get one big rock in the bucket.
Yeah. So
you've got to start with an empty bucket, empty calendar, and then identify those things that are the most meaningful, that are going to move the needle, that are going to have the greatest impact on your business, your relationships, your health, and then schedule those. And in real estate, they're called dollar productive activities. I know you know what they are, but for the benefit of people listening, you've got to have listing appointments every week. You've got to have buyer appointments every week. So in a perfect world, what day of the week, what time of the day would you like to do that? For me, I'm not really excited about working nights and weekends. So if you can create and articulate a good offer that's so compelling, customers, prospects, clients will move mountains to meet with you if they see value in meeting with you. So you don't have to work nights and weekends. I built a very successful business with being totally proactive. You have to work on your business too. You have to create those offers. You have to know what to say. You have to go out and spend time with successful agents and learn. So what day of the week would you do that? How many hours a week? What about prospecting or lead generation? That has to happen. Showing homes and negotiating contracts. So those are the big ones for real estate. And then all the other little voids in your schedule, processing paperwork, returning phone calls, all those things are like the sand in the water. They'll sift and sort through, and they'll end up getting done, but you don't have to do them first.
Yeah.
Man, how many people today start their day checking their email? Checking your email isn't a money-making activity. So why would that be the first thing that you do when you start your day?
Yeah. Yeah. No, look, that rock and sand, that's a great analogy. I do know that one, but You illustrate it in a different kind of way. And, and so, again, those rocks are the things that are really important, the things that'll move the needle. And I think, the sand, this bucket, right? The urgent, important, urgent, not important. I think that's where people get stuck. They get stuck in all those little things that are urgent, but they're not important. And they just don't put them in that filter of, okay, what is this thing? Is it urgent? Okay. Is it important? Right? Or is it not important? Or is it important but not urgent? Right? And it's really, those things that are important but not urgent. Those are the things, man, the things that are important but not urgent. If you don't put those, if you don't schedule those will never get scheduled because they're not urgent. But those are the things that can really move the needle in your business. Okay, hey, really, we're gonna start wrapping up here. Really quickly, I want to get your take on social media and is it like a winning strategy? What do you think of social media?
Well, I have it, and it's a great way to connect.
Okay.
And I use it primarily to, my son's in martial arts, as I mentioned. I meet wonderful people all over the country through the martial arts. I also have been fortunate to be in the real estate business for a long time, have met and befriended many, many successful people. So it's a great way for me to stay in touch with people who I care about and who I have an interest in their lives. And that's the primary way that I use it. Can it generate business for you? There's no question. We could probably do an entire segment on this, but there's nothing more frustrating for me than for me to get my social media feeds and it's people promoting whatever it is they're promoting.
Yep.
And if they continue to do it, we know what we do. You end up blocking those people. And I think social media has a place in business and in sales and can generate leads. But the vast majority of people that are friends with us on Facebook, for example, only a very small percentage of them at any given time are thinking about buying or selling a house. So if you're promoting your listings on your social media page, you're probably alienating and upsetting the people that you're friends with. So I think there's a right way to go about it and a wrong way to go about it. And, it's kind of I don't know if I answered your question.
Yeah, you did. Yeah, no, that's exactly.
It took a long time.
No, that's good. No, I was watching the clock, man. It only took about a minute and a half. That was shorter than you think it was. No, I would agree with that. And I think everybody needs to always be, there's the 80-20 rule and everything. And with social media, on your personal page, it's 80% personal, 20% can be business. And on your business page, it's 80% business and 20% personal. So,
yeah, great.
So I have 3 questions that I asked sort of at the end. Here we go. Here's the first one. I'm an aspiring agent. I have $25. What book should I go buy today?
Think and Grow Rich.
I love it. Look, and for everybody out there, Think and Grow Rich should be like the first book in your bookcase. If you haven't read it, go get a free copy using our link, audibletrial.com/superagentslive. I'm kind of a little bit interested because you do work with Jay. I'm interested in your answer to this one. Do you have an internet tool like an Evernote that you're in love with that you can share?
I don't. Well, let me think about that. An internet tool that I'm in love with. What's an internet? I have a lot of apps on my phone. So, there's all kinds of apps that I use. Many of them are personal and don't really enhance my business. But here's one for business. Yeah, Salgado. So I know that if I have X number of leads per month, I'm not going to reach all of them no matter how hard I try. Now, I've really studied what are some best practices we can do so that I can reach a high percentage of the leads that I have. But in today's world, let's face it, you've got caller ID, you've got voicemail, you've got email, and people hide behind that stuff, and it's becoming increasingly more difficult to reach people. So Salgado is an app that you can download. I don't know if it's free or if it's a couple of bucks, but it allows you to call somebody and leave a message without them answering the phone. I use that quite a bit.
Wait. Say that you can call them and leave a message without what?
Yeah, so So let's say that I want to leave a compelling message for a whole bunch of leads.
Yeah.
And, I only had an hour to do it. I can use this app called Salgado, because if you answer the phone, I'm going to get involved in a conversation with you, and it's going to take me away from reaching all the people that I want to reach and get my message to.
Yeah.
So if I'm promoting an open house or I'm doing something and I just want to get you a message, Salgado will ring your phone and go directly into your voicemail, and you never have the opportunity to answer the phone. So I can leave you a message.
Interesting, man. That is interesting. I'm looking at it now.
Here's another way, and I hope my mom's not listening, but I use it to call my mother, because when I call my mom, it's a 20-minute conversation. So if I just want to say, "Hey, Mom, I love you, I miss you. It's been really busy at work. I'm looking forward to seeing you with the kids at the football game next weekend," I can use Salgado, and she can't answer the phone.
I love it, man. I love it. And by the way, I'm looking at it in iTunes. It says it's free, but the ratings on it, it's only got 2 ratings. It looks like there's some problems with it, but look, I love that notion. All right.
Cool.
So my last question for you, Brian, is this: do you have any personal habits that you feel have contributed to your success?
Yeah, for sure. I've developed, a strong will and desire and persistence. I think if I were to pick one, the word "can't" doesn't exist in Brian Moses' vocabulary, my house, or my environment.
Oh man!
In fact, if I hear somebody say the word "can't," it actually rubs me the wrong way, like maybe a profanity would rub a churchgoer the wrong way. Can't is probably the most destructive word in the English language, in my personal opinion, and it just doesn't exist in my home. So I believe that anything is possible. Where there's a will, there's a way, and there are people out there that have already done it. So, can't just doesn't exist.
I love it, man. I'll tell you a personal story of mine. This happened literally last week. Cool. We had a big storm here. I'm in San Diego. We had a big freak storm, and we had I had a 40-foot tree, beautiful tree that fell over. So I had to go bust out the chainsaws to try to, cut some of it down, because I was going to try to save the tree. And so, whatever. I pulled the you pull the string to start the chainsaw or whatever.
Sure.
The thing broke. So me and my 10-year-old son, I said, "Hey, dude, let's take it apart. Let's fix this thing, because we got to cut this thing down." And the bottom line is we fixed it, and then he wrecked it. He wrecked this spring thing, and we tried to fix it. We couldn't fix it. And I'm like, damn it, man, we're just gonna have to take it to the shop tomorrow. I'll have to go get a new one. So, and my son was upset because he knew he did it, and he's like, "No, Dad, I can fix it. I can fix it." I said, "Man, look, Hudson." His name is Hudson. I said, "Hudson, you can't. You can't do it, man." And again, and he was upset, and he went inside and whatever. And it was just kind of a fluke thing. Bob Corcoran, I don't know, you know who that is, right?
Sure. Yeah.
So Bob called me. Like, Bob and I would talk. We probably talk 2 or 3 times a week. So Bob called me, and we were talking, and somehow, man, this thing came up, and he's like, "You should, and he coaches me, he's like, "You should not have probably said that." And dude, I felt bad, and I went inside, and I said, "Look, I'm really sorry about saying that." Anyhow, so I love that notion, and I'm going to try and implement that here in our household. I'm certainly going to take it out of my vocabulary. So, hey, this is one of the times, Brian, that I learned something from my guest. So I thank you for that. And by the way, if people want to, listen to your episode and reach out and say thank you, or might have questions about something, where can people find you?
Oh, I'd love to hear from them. My email, naea.com.
Okay, hold on. You literally broke up as soon as you started saying that. Say that one more time.
It's Brian, BRIAN, at naea.com.
Awesome. Hey, Brian, I really appreciate it, buddy. Thanks for coming on. Let's keep in touch.
Toby, it was my pleasure. Have a great day.
You got it. See you, bud.
Let's go. Yeah.